Are you thinking about moving to Portland, Oregon, but you have no idea what it actually costs to live here? Well, I brought my bills with me today and I'm not holding back. You got housing costs, groceries, property taxes, utilities, transportation, all of it. Real numbers, real 2026 data. And I promise you, at least one of these items is going to shock you, and it honestly might not be what you actually think. Whether you're relocating from California, Seattle, Texas, or anywhere else, by the end of this video, you know exactly what it costs to live and breathe in Portland, Oregon in 2026. Let's get into the first one, which is housing. Let's start with the biggest one because housing is the #1 cost of living factor for anyone moving to Portland, Oregon, and it's no exception. Here's where the market sits right now. The median home price in Portland, Oregon is approximately $550,000 upwards to $530,000 as early as 2026 this year. That is the baseline for a standard single family home here in Portland. But this is really important. That number swings dramatically depending on where you are. Close-in neighborhoods like Pearl District, Northwest Portland, or Laurelhurst, you're looking at anywhere between $700,000 to $800,000, even $900,000 plus for a nice single family home. That's the premium zip code territory, especially in this metro. Inner Southeast, Hawthorne, Division, Woodstock, $550,000 upwards to $700,000 for a solid craftsman or even a bungalow character type of home. Does that make sense? That keep Portland weird vibe. Then you have outer Northeast, Lentz, Centennial, St. John's. Real value starts here. $400,000 to $500,000 range, more house, more land, longer commutes. And then you have the major, most populous areas, the suburbs, the great suburbs, especially located in the employment sectors, such as Beaverton, Hillsborough, you got Gresham, $380,000 to $400,000 with newer construction and often better school ratings. Here's the math you need to run though. At the median price of $510,000 with 10% and a mortgage rate of around 6%, you're looking at a principal and interest of roughly anywhere between $2,800 to $2,900 per month. Now, obviously that's before taxes, insurance, HOA, if any. So all-in monthly cost on a medium home is realistically going to be anywhere between $3,400 to $4,000 when you add everything together. And think about this part right here, because this is where most people get it wrong. They calculate the mortgage, stop there. Property taxes, insurance, HOAs are what's pushed that number monthly to somewhere completely different than what they're accustomed to. Pay attention to what I'm about to show you next. For renters, the average one bedroom in Portland is running anywhere between $1,500 to $1,600 per month. A two bedroom is obviously gonna cost more, averaging around $1,800 to $1,900. And of course, in the downtown areas such as Pearl District and Northwest Portland, those numbers jump upwards to $2,200 for just a single bedroom number. Now, of course, in more affordable areas such as St. John's, Montevilla, or outer Southeast, one bedrooms can cost, as low as $1,300 to $1,400 per month. But here's the good news for you as a buyer. Inventory has loosened up, it has rose. There's currently about 4.3 months of supply in the metro area, and that's not a buyer's market by textbook definition, but is meaningfully a more balanced to what we had back in 21 and 22. You have time to actually look. You have time to negotiate. That window really matters. If you want me to pull specific comps for your budget, what a $450,000 house, a $550,000, or even a $650,000 budget actually gets you in different parts of Portland neighborhoods, right now, give my team a call, send us an email. We do this every day. The info is in the description below. Let's get into the next one. This one's huge. It's property taxes. This catches a lot of people off guard. It caught me off guard whenever I first moved here. This is the one that, a lot of these out-of-state buyers, especially people coming from states with lower effective tax rates, in Multnomah County, which is where the city of Portland sits, the median homeowner pays about $5,500 per month in property taxes. That's roughly $460 per month in a year. The effective tax rate works approximately 0.98% of the home's real value. Here's something unique about Oregon and how it actually calculates property tax. Under Measure 50, your home is taxed on its assessed value, not necessarily its market value or what the home sold for or what you bought it for. Okay, remember that. Assessed value can only increase by a maximum of 3% per year. Okay, so if you buy a home today at $520,000, your assessed value might actually be typically lower at $280,000 or $300,000. But previous owners have been capped at that 3% growth for many many years. This is actually a significant benefit that keeps long-term homeowners from taxes from spiraling. Okay, in Washington County, Beaverton, and Hillsborough, the effective tax rate is slightly lower at 0.84%. And of course, Clackamas County, which is the cheapest property taxes in the entire state of Oregon. You got Lake Oswego, Oregon City, and of course the southern suburbs. You'll see very similar ranges, but one thing to note and one thing to flag for 2026 is Portland voters passed a measure 26 to 260 in November 2025. What this means is the parks levy, which adds about $180 per year starting with November 2026 tax bills for a $300,000 assessed value. Small, but worth knowing. Now, I gave you a whole bunch of stuff and I'm sorry if that bored you, but here's why that actually matters for you. That Measure 50 assessed value system means two identical homes on the same street can have very different tax bills depending on when they were last sold. And this is one of those details that makes all the difference when you're comparing properties. And my team and I, we look at this for every home we evaluate for our clients. Now, let's talk about the next thing. Portland has some of the most diverse residential architecture of any city in the entire Pacific Northwest. And that type of home you choose genuinely impacts your ongoing monthly costs. The most common style you'll find, especially in Southeast Portland, East Portland, is the craftsman style bungalow, typically built in the early 1900s upwards to 1940s. Beautiful, great quality bones, hardwood floors, bunch of key Portland weird character everywhere. But these older homes come with a real maintenance needs. Older plumbing, older electrical, potentially original windows, single pane versus double pane. Budget 1 to 2% of the home's value annually for maintenance. So for example, on a $500,000 home, that's anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000 a year that you should be setting aside for potential maintenance concerns, upgrades, or just overall making the home a little bit more modern standards. Now, of course, you have the great Tudor style, one of my very personal favorite, and then you have the colonial revival homes that span from the 20s to the 30s, are common in neighborhoods such as Ladd's Addition, Irvington, Alameda. Gorgeous, but the same story on the maintenance front. And then you have great mid-century moderns. These are very popular homes, especially in the entire Portland metro. And these ranch homes are from the 50s to 60s, are popular in areas such as Lake Oswego, parts of Southwest Portland, and of course, better citizens typically, but they often still need updates to insulation windows, which directly affect your utility bills. Now, efficiency is definitely important here. New construction is happening primarily in the suburbs. And, you know, like I mentioned before, Beaverton, Hillsborough, you got Sherwood, you have Happy Valley on the east side. These come with very energy efficient windows, insulations, HVAC systems, which translates to meaningful low utility bills every single month. An older $500K, $1,000 house or craftsman style house with charm might actually cost you more per month in maintenance and utilities than a $480,000 construction in Beaverton. Once you see this, it's actually hard to unsee. So definitely consider what is more appealing to you. Do you like that Portland weird charm of a craftsman style or bungalow home? Or do you prefer something that's a little bit less maintenance concerns, such as a new construction in one of those major suburbs that I've mentioned? HOA fees. You're looking at condos, townhomes, master plan communities. This line item has to go in your budget no matter what. And I see it get left out all the time. In Portland, Oregon, HOA fees generally range from about $200 to $500, depending on the area, of course, and what community, what's involved, and what amenities are actually covered. Good example, the Pearl District has high concentration of tower condos, skyline. You'll find HOA's fees as high as $1,200 per month in the same building. These typically cover, of course, maintenance concerns, common areas, water, garbage, amenities such as gym and rooftop deck. Now, those are obviously going to be a lot of amenities, and so it might make sense for you, but then you have the suburban plan communities such as Beaverton, Lake Oswego, Hillsborough. You might be looking at something as far as cheap as $50 per month to $200 per month, covering landscape, common areas, and neighborhoods and amenities. For standalone single-family homes in most of these Portland neighborhoods, no HOA. That is actually a norm for the older cities, especially like Hawthorne, Alberta, St. John's, like I mentioned. The real trap here is when buyers are comparing a $480,000 condo with a $495,000 house and they only look at the mortgage. If that condo has a $500 HOA fee, your all-in monthly cost is $500 more than a house every single month. Over a year, that's $6,000. Over 5 years, that's $30,000. It changes the math entirely. So always look at the total monthly cost of ownership, the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, HOA, not just the purchase price, not just what is principal, interest, and taxes and insurance, PITI. This is how you know what's coming next in your budget. And quick pause. If you're finding this video helpful, definitely hit subscribe button right now. I put out new real estate and relocation content every single week. I cover neighborhoods, market updates, school breakdowns, community events, things to know before you actually move here. And if you're ready to actually start having a real conversation about your move to Portland, Oregon, reach out to my team. We work with out-of-state buyers every single month, and we will help build a real budget and a game plan. Call us, text us, email us. The info is in the description below. All right, let's talk about it. What you're actually going to pay every month to keep the lights on, the heat running, the water flowing. Here's actually the good news. Portland's utility costs are about 7 to 13% lower than the national average. That's a good thing. And the reason for that is the Oregon's energy grid. A significant portion of Oregon's electricity comes from hydroelectric power. Of course, you know, we have the Willamette River, and of course we have a whole bunch of water surrounding us, particularly from the Columbia River system up north. Clean, renewable, and relatively pretty cheap. That is a real advantage to you that you actually won't find a lot in other markets around the US. For a standard 2-bedroom apartment, expect to pay roughly $150 to $200 per month, covering electricity, heating, water, garbage, you name it. For a 2,300 to 2,500 square foot house or single family home, it's pretty typical for a Portland house. Your monthly utilities are going to run somewhere in the $200 to $280 per month during those shoulder months, and closer to upwards to $350 during the winter months, when of course heating costs go up, gas costs go up to just heat your home in general. Now, electricity runs about 15 to 16 cents per kilowatt hour, which is below the national average, believe it or not. Natural gas has been trending upward and runs, you know, $23 per MCF currently. So budget for higher bills, especially in those colder months, anywhere between November through March. Internet service in Portland is widely available, of course, and we're a city at the end of the day, and it's pretty competitive. Budget around $60 to $90 per month. I think my own house, I pay about, I think it's $75 or $80 per month, depending on what type of speed and what your provider is. You know, such as Comcast, Xfinity, Google Fiber are, you know, those primary providers. This is why utilities are not a flat number. They depend on what you're living. So a 1912 Craftsman with original single pane windows is going to have a very different utility bill than a 22 build in Hillsborough with triple pane windows, spray foam insulation. This one detail makes all the difference in your monthly budget. Groceries, that's the next thing. Portland's grocery prices run about 7 to 8% above the national average. Yeah, that's a concern, which is actually a lot lower than a lot of West Coast cities such as Seattle, as well as the state of California, but it's still something you have to factor in and you have to budget. Real numbers, a gallon of milk runs about $4 to $5. A dozen of eggs are running anywhere between as low as, you know, $2.50 upwards to $5, depending on how much of a premium style egg you want. A loaf of bread can be about $3.50 to $4.50 depending on the brand and, you know, what style you want. And then for a single person cooking at home, a reasonable amount budget around $350 and $450 per month for groceries alone. A family of 4 obviously is going to go out. I mean, you could be expected to pay around $1,300 per month for a family of 4. Here's something that genuinely helps offset grocery costs. The farmers market culture here is exceptional. And here's something that genuinely helps offset grocery costs. The farmers market culture here is exceptional. The Portland Farmers Market at PSU, for example, runs through spring through fall and has some of the best produce pricing quality you'll find anywhere. For people who buy seasonal and local, it can actually help keep your grocery bill lower than hitting a standard chain such as Fred Meyer's or Safeway store every single week. And that's why it's so popular here. I mean, you see farmers market literally in every single neighborhood, depending on what neighborhood. And of course, when it comes to dining out, Portland's food scene is world class. I'll stand by that. A dinner for 2 at a mid-range restaurant is going to run you about $60 to $80 before drinks. But the food cart scene here is the great equalizer. You can eat incredible chef quality food for about $12 to $18 per month at any of the city's food cart location. The food cart ecosystem genuinely changes your dining out budget. If you're smart about it, you can eat better here for less than you would at chain restaurants in most other cities. Portland's food costs are manageable if you know how to eat, shop here in Portland, Oregon. Let's change it up. Here's a little bit of a trade-off. It's, you know, this eighth point is the taxes. Let's talk about it, because this is one of the most unique and most misunderstood parts of Oregon cost of living. And there are two sides to the coin. Side one, the amazing side. Oregon has zero sales tax, none. When you buy car, furniture, electronics, clothing, what you see on the price tag is what you're actually gonna pay for. You're not having to pay for a 7 to 8% like I did whenever I first lived in Texas. No math at the register, that's what you pay. Oregon is one of the 5 only states in the country with this specific policy. So on a $40,000 car purchase, someone in California could easily pay $3,500 in sales tax. In Oregon, zero. So over a full year, everyday purchases, clothing, appliances, home goods, families consistently save upwards to $4,000 annually just from the absence of sales tax alone. That is real money that you're saving every single year. Here's the other side, the bad side, the dark side, right? Oregon state income tax is one of the highest in the country. It tops out at 9.9% for high earners. That's a lot, especially if you're making income upwards to 150 to 200K plus per year. The brackets kick in progressively, so you're typically around 8.7%. But once you're earning over that $125,000 threshold as a single filer, when it comes to tax time, you know, your taxes can range anywhere between overall 4.75% upwards to 8.75%, still high for individuals earning $125,000. So high earners in Portland are looking at, you know, state plus local income tax that can meaningfully reduce your take-home pay, which sucks. Here's the math for $150,000 salary in Washington state, zero income tax, you keep everything. In Portland, you're paying roughly upwards to 9% in state and local income tax on a significant portion of that. That is a real monthly difference comparing the two states of Washington and Oregon. The question I want you to know is, does the no sales tax saving offset the income tax hit? For most households, especially those earning below 100K, the answer is yes, or close to it. But unfortunately for higher income earners or business owners or business entrepreneurs, the income tax is a dominant factor that you need to model out specifically for your situation. It's so important to budget. This changes how you should think about Portland, the relocation budget entirely. Don't just compare home prices. Compare your full after tax, after expense take home picture. Understanding the full financial picture before you move is what separates a great decision from an expensive surprise down the line. Don't be the one that eventually move back to where you're from. Now let's get into the next one. It's transportation costs. And this is one that has very few different layers depending on how you get around, okay? Let's start with gas. As early as 2026, Portland's gas prices are running upwards to $4.10 per gallon for a regular unleaded, which is above the national average. I mean, that's damn near close to California prices. Oregon's gas taxes and West Coast refinery dynamics keep prices higher here than most in the entire country. So definitely you got to budget for gas. So if you're driving, a vehicle, registrations in Oregon runs about $120 per year with a biannual renewal process. You'll also need an emissions test, especially in Multnomah County and Washington counties. I didn't know this. I moved from Texas. We didn't have IQ checks. And so whenever I first moved here, you have to get it regularly. So don't get pulled over with an expired registration is what I'm trying to say. The average commute time in Portland, the metro area, is around 27 to 30 minutes, depending on where you're going, of course, which is actually better than Seattle and most, the California metros. But it varies enormously by where you live and versus where you work. The I-5 corridor between Portland and Vancouver, Washington, backs up consistently. During peak hours and even outside of peak hours, the Sunset Highway Boulevard, Highway 26 on the west side towards Beaverton and Hillsborough, forget about it. I hate driving there, but I'm there quite frequently. It can add up to 20 to 45 minutes to your commute, especially during those rush hour times. The good news is you have access to alternatives. You can bike, you have the TriMet that costs as little as $100 per month, and it covers the Max Light Rail system that maxes throughout the entire metro. So if you can design your life around transit, which is genuinely possible in many of these Portland neighborhoods, you can reduce transportation costs significantly. A single Max ride, can be as low as $2.80, back in 2025, and the Max Red Line connects directly to Portland Airport, and it's $35 35 to 40 minutes downtown, depending on the time of day. You know, there's no parking fees, no Uber surge pricing, but no traffic stress. Here's where this gets really practical for relocation, because decisions like this, which are neighborhood specific, you buy in determines where your actual commute costs. Your $100 a month or $400 a month living near a max line versus somewhere car dependent is very different financial picture. My team maps out this very specific client, and it's one of the reasons people are glad they called us before they bought. Portland is in an interesting phase right now, and understanding where growth is happening is one of the most important things you can do as a buyer. Within the city itself, infill development has been happening in neighborhoods and across inner and outer Portland for the past several years. ADUs, especially accessory dwelling units, what most people call in-law suites, mother-in-law suites, or multi-generation homes, backyard small cottages, are actively encouraged by the city zoning here to promote more livable areas. Oregon actually passed a statewide legislation making ADUs construction easier, cheaper in Portland, and you can often build one without even a lengthy permitting battle, especially in Multnomah County. For buyers thinking about rental income or multi-generational living, this is a significant financial opportunity, and it's becoming very, very popular. I've helped clients purchase and sell homes with ADUs just for that standard alone. In these suburbs, particularly Hillsborough, Beaverton, and the areas along the 26th corridor on the west side, there's active master plan developments happening all the time. New schools, new retail, new infrastructure. These areas are attracting buyers who want new construction at a better price point, and the fundamentals of population and job growth, especially near Intel and Nike on the west side specifically, are very strong because of those employment factors alone. That's why it's definitely one of the more populous areas because of that reason. And then you have on the east side, Gresham, Troutdale are actively growing as more buyers are being priced out to the closer to Portland neighborhoods. Less sexy, but the valuation equation is real. From a pure investment perspective, Portland's home values have historically appreciated on an average of anywhere between 4 to 6% annually over long cycles. The 2021 peak that we saw, the correction, and the current stabilization of part of the normal market cycle, buyers who purchased in 18 and 2019 are sitting on significant equity. So today, despite the correction, the long-term trajectory here is positive. You're not just buying a home, you're buying into a market. Hillsborough, Beaverton, outer northeast, these are where the growth signals are. Whenever you see this kind of infrastructure investment, the value always follows. If you have kids or planning to have future kids, schools are going to be a real factor, and of course it's going to be important for both you, yourself, and your home and your overall monthly budget. Portland Public Schools is the largest district, of course, in Oregon. It's Multnomah County, of course. The quality varies significantly by school. There are standout elementary and middle schools within Portland Public System. Schools like Alameda, Buckman Arts, Magnet, and Chapman are highly rated, but the district overall is mixed, and the high school performance in particular has been an area of concern and ongoing reform. And then you have Lake Oswego, West Linn, Wilsonville school districts in the southern suburbs are consistently among the highest rated in the state. Beaverton and Hillsborough districts in Washington County also perform quite well. Then you, of course, you have Bethany, which is probably one of the highest rated school districts, and why a lot that specific area is really, seeing quite a lot of growth. So particularly given these large number of families are connected to the tech industry in that corridor, if the public school quality is a top priority for your family and for many buyers, it definitely is, the neighborhood you choose is going to be heavily influenced by school zones. And in Portland, home prices clearly reflect the school quality. Private school cost in Portland can be as high as $22,000 per year per student. Schools like Catlin Gable, Oregon Episcopal, and Portland Jewish Academy are well regarded in private option. And so if private school is part of your plan, factor that into your monthly budget. It is a significant line item that you can't forget. A $50,000 difference in home price between a high rated school zone and a low rated one can look like savings. But if it pushes you into a private school tuition, the math reverses quickly. So if you're thinking long term, this part right here is important. Let's shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about one of my favorite parts of the whole conversation, because Portland's outdoor lifestyle is genuinely one of the best cost of living advantages, of living here. Most people don't think to put it into the budget comparison alone. At least I didn't whenever I moved here. You have Forest Park, Northwest, over 80 miles of trails right inside city limits. It's completely free. You don't need a pass. You don't need a reservation. You park, find a trailhead, you walk in and you hike. I see people do this on a Tuesday morning before work or even after work. That is a world-class amenity that costs you nothing. And then you have the Columbia River Gorge, 30 minutes east of downtown, is also free to access. Multnomah Falls, tons of hiking, the scenic overlooks, no fee to experience any of it, by the way. Okay. And then you have Oregon State parks everywhere, including beaches, campgrounds, day use areas, can be accessed as little as a $30 annual, Oregon Pacific Coast passport or a $30 annual state parks pass. That's so cheap. So you have access to hundreds of parks across the entire state. In my opinion, that is one of the most extraordinary values that Pacific Northwest definitely outshines other parts of the country. And then you have the mountain. Mount Hood skiing is not free, of course. A day ticket can definitely be pretty costly, upwards to $100 per person, especially during the peak season. But you can also consider an annual pass that typically runs a lot higher, as high as $500 to $700 per month, depending on when you actually buy that. If you ski more than 8 to 10 days out of the year, that pass alone pays for itself, in my opinion. I have a lot of friends who take advantage of that possibility, and as I record this video, they're probably out there skiing right now. And then you have the wine culture, one of my top favorites. 45 minutes from Portland, you have tasting rooms everywhere. $30 per person, very accessible. It's not a bad drive. It's very scenic. The outdoor access here is genuinely one of the best in the country, and most of it is free or damn near close to it. So when you factor in that lifestyle, you're getting for the dollar, the picture looks a lot different than just looking at housing, utilities, grocery costs, property taxes, whatever. Worth it in my complete opinion. And now the last thing I want to cover, and this is the one that matters a lot if you travel for work or if you love to get out of town and travel in general, is Portland's airport situation. It is genuinely top tier, excellent, S-Class. Portland, or PDX, or Portland International Airport, is located about 6 miles northeast of downtown, serves about 17 to 20 million passengers per year, and has, access to over 75 domestic destinations. It's also an international airport. It has nonstop routes, direct flights to London, Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Cancun, you name it. PDX just completed its phase 1 of a massive $2 billion renovation back in 2024, with a phase 2 wrapping up this year in 2026. The new main terminal is beautiful, it's functioning, and it has that Portland charm. Local food, local sharps, no markup pricing because Oregon's no sales tax policy. You could get a Stumptown coffee at the airport for the same price you'd pay on the same street. Does that make sense? Getting to PDX is relatively pretty easy. You have access to obviously the Max line. You can bike there. You can take an Uber there, and so it's only, again, the airport costs. You can roll your luggage on the train. No parking fees. No Uber surge pricing. No traffic stress. So if you travel for work or take regular vacations, the access to Portland really saves you a lot of money. I mean, you can park as little as $20 to $30 per day in the main garage. PDX brand new terminal, expanding international routes and direct light rail access from your neighborhood. This is a quality life factor that adds real value to living in the Portland metro area. Once you experience it, you'll understand why Portland, or the Portland International Airport, consistently ranks as one of the best airports in the entire country. Google it. I'm not joking here. All right, let's put it all together. What does it actually cost to live comfortably in Portland, Oregon in 2026? Here's a realistic monthly budget for a couple buying a medium home price of around $520,000. Mortgage principal, interest at 6%, 10% down typically. You can pay approximately $3,000 per month. And then you have additional property taxes that can be $430 to $460 per month. And then of course you have homeowners insurance that could cost upwards to $100 per month. You have utilities, electric, gas, water, internet, approximately $350 per month. Again, I'm being on the high end here. You could actually take a more conservative approach if you actually shop around and look for the best quotes and prices. For a typical family, $700 to $900 per month for, a family of 3. Transportation costs can cost anywhere between $200 to $400 per month. Dining out, if that's for you, entertainment, $300 to $500 per month is pretty realistic here in the Portland Metro. So total all-in monthly costs plus living costs somewhere in between of $4,800 to $5,700 per month for all that, before personal discretionary spending, of course. So to live comfortably in Portland as a couple buying a home at the median price, the household income probably needs to look anywhere between $120,000 to $140,000 per year for a realistic target. That keeps your housing costs at or below 30% typical recommended threshold or guideline, while leaving room for the rest of your life for your leisure activities. The income to housing cost ratio in Portland right now, especially compared to Seattle, the Bay Area, and California, is one of the strongest arguments making a move in 2026 this year. This window doesn't stay open forever. So that's it. That's the real breakdown of the cost of living in Portland, Oregon. And the quality of life, such as what I mentioned before, the outdoor access, the amazing food scene, the spontaneous great airport that we have, the mass amount of neighborhoods that genuinely competes with cities that cost 2 to 3 times as much. If you want a custom breakdown of what your budget will actually look like here in Portland, Oregon, based on your income, your price range, and the lifestyle that you're actually looking for, reach out to my team right now. We do this every single week where I'm actually helping navigate, people that are considering relocating here from out of state, and we'll give you the real picture before you actually make any real decisions. Call us, text us, email us. Everything is in my description below and on the screen. And if you're not ready for that, hit subscribe. We release videos every single week. I appreciate you guys for looking. And if you're considering more of an outlook, here's a little bit more information about the truth of what it takes to actually live here in Portland, Oregon, the outdoor accesses, the challenges that you see, and I'll see you there.